Full Metal Alchemist fans, we're going over this as soon as possible. It just came out in JP just the other day. I think it might even be today that it came out. And we're covering this right now, and I want you guys to keep in mind, Global's been getting the collaborations sooner and sooner and sooner after JP. We've seen this with Kingdom Hearts. Came out not too long after it came out in JP. DQ11 Part 1 and 2 came out in JP. We got it not too long after JP. Full Metal Alchemist probably going to follow the same suit of events for you. So let's get into it with the first one, Roy Mustang. There's three characters that are 5-star. Roy Mustang, Alphonse, and Edward, obviously, are the three characters that we're going to be going over. So, TMR here for Roy. He is a mage, obviously. It's a 52 magic accessory that gives you 20% magic as well as 30% fire resist as long as it's equipped to Roy. So just a 52 magic stat stick for Roy and then percentage base. We see this a lot in collaboration units where their TMRs and super TMRs have like bonus effects. I don't know if it's something that they do when they're dealing with like the other parts of Square Enix where they're, you know, they're like, okay, we'll give them a special effect on their TMR that they can only use for themselves. I don't know if that's part of the collaboration deal. I don't know why they do that, because for me as a player, I can't speak for everyone, but when I see that, it's not more of a reason for me to pull for that unit. It's less of a reason for me to pull for that unit, right? Like once, you know, Roy or whoever falls off, I don't really have a reason to use that TMR anymore. So it doesn't make me want to pull for him more. It makes me want to pull for him less. So maybe they should rethink that. You know, I don't know if they've tried that in the other part of the company. I don't even know if that's, you know, what's going on, but if that's what's going on, that's stupid. Like, don't do it. His super TMR is Materia, 60% magic, 80% fire resist, 50% magic killer, pretty bland. It's good stats, so that's about it. Let's move into his equipment selection as well as abilities. He has access to guns, rods, staves, and daggers. So there's a couple good hybrid super TMR daggers. There is primarily for guns and rods, not a lot of good hybrid ones. There is one in particular, the Quicksilver from, I do believe, the Glacial Bird. That's a hybrid weapon with good magic on it. Outside of that, though, you're going to be sticking to rods for our boy Roy Mustang here. Now, getting his skills here, we have fire magic damage 1.0 multiplier, ignore 50% spirit. And then auto cast the next turn. It's going to give him 150% limit burst damage buff for one turn. So this is like a preparation skill. You snap the finger. Next turn, the detonation happens, which I like pretty well. It fits his character pretty well. He snaps, and then the explosion. It's never like, it's a little delayed. You know, it's not like instant, but it's like, it gives, I like it because like you snap the finger, the fire grows, and then it explodes the next turn. So I like that a lot. We have a 200% magic buff for 3 turns of the caster. That also is going to give you 25 limit break gauge crystals. You're going to see a very big similarity to the new Sakura that came out in JP. If you think of Roy, as we go through here, as like a magic version, if you don't know how Sakura was, as a magic version of Regina, as a magic version of CG Noctis, then you'll have a good understanding of how he works. He does some skills. He's got a lot of casts. He bumps up his multipliers. He bumps up his limit burst gauge. He bumps up his limit burst damage. He does something on that turn, and then he lets it rip the following turn, which very much fits his character. I know it's kind of like a redone thing. You know, there's 3 characters that kind of work that way, though, but it kind of works, like the fire building and then exploding the following turn. I like that a lot. So it gets a 3.0 multiplier increase here, 25 limit burst gauge crystals, fire, wind, and light resist 65% buff for all allies, 25 limit burst gauge crystals, 3.0 multiplier increase as well for the same skill. They're going to be stacking up on. So let's go ahead and boom, so we can get that skill when it comes back up. He does get a skill that auto revives himself, 30% HP, 25 limit burst gauge crystals, 3.0 multiplier. So you can see that like these buffing skills, the earlier ones, they give you a multiplier increase, but they're more supportive aspects, just like Noctis is, just like Regina's. So very similar thing. He does have the pentacast that denotes those characters as this sort of archetype of character. The buff, 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 boom. The buff, 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 boom characters. I like them. Now, he's got 150% human killer buff, 150% demon killer buff, 150% beast killer buff. These also give him 25 limit burst gauge crystals. They also increase the multiplier to that one skill, the payoff skill, instead of by 3.0 by 8.0. So it's going to work that way. He does have another skill here that increases it by 12.0, cures his magic break, and gives him 25 limit burst crystals. Just like Regina, just like Noctis, they have one of these skills at the very end that gives a higher multiplier but doesn't give a killer. So same thing. His cooldown skills, just like those characters, just like Regina, 20 times multiplier increase instead of 8 or 12, 25 limit burst gauge crystals, 250% magic buff, 120% fire imperil though, very important, And then 4-turn cooldown available on turn 1. 100% magic break for 3 turns. Increase resistance to magic break by 100% for 3 turns to the caster. 100% fire resistance buff for 3 turns to the caster. 25 limit burst gauge crystals to the caster, and a 20 times multiplier. Now, the skill that we're buffing obviously is the first skill we went over, the 1.0 multiplier with an over 50% spirit. Same kind of thing as Regina Cannon. So you're gonna get all these multiplier increases, 2 20 times multipliers, a 12 times multiplier, and an 8 times multiplier. So 3 times multiplier of 20, and then another 20 because 8 plus 12 goes in here. So it's gonna be a 61 times multiplier. It would ignore 50% spirit. So it's gonna be 122 times multiplier. Boom, and then it gives you 150% limit burst damage buff for the next turn. So very strong character, very easy to use. If you like that kind of character, chain finisher, get in there, palm, gone, boom. There's a lot of booms. There's gonna be a lot of booms. I like FMA. Roy Mustang is one of my favorite characters. I don't know if I'll pull on this banner though. I don't know, man. Noctis is coming. Ooh. Magic plus 30%, magic and spirit 30% will cool with clothes, defense and spirit 20%, 50% magic, true double hand, 30% magic, 10% MP recovery, 30% more magic, 60% fire and dark resist, 30% HP and MP, blind confusion and petrify immunity. His TMR says trust master reward ability is the defense and HP 30%, 100% chance to survive fatal damage 1 time. 100% true double hand magic, 20% magic, 60% magic, 50% demon killer, and he's stop immunity. All right, his limit burst here, 48 times multiplier. So he's gonna have that nice 150% limit burst damage mod. It's gonna be an 8-hit skill. I'm gonna chain weave it in there. It costs 100 limit burst crystals, but that's because you're casting 4 of those buffing skills each turn, and each of them give you 25 limit burst crystals. So he works just like Regina. If that's the kind of character you want like a mage version of Regina, then that's what you're gonna want to go for. Is the boy Colonel Roy Mustang here. So I'm pretty hyped for him. Now Alphonse is gonna be a big beefy boy tank for you out there. So if you're looking for a tank, you're a Full Metal Alchemist fan, and you've been holding off on pulling for tanks, you might be swapping over to Alphonse if he comes out pretty soon. So his TMR, or it is going to be a materia, 40% attack, 40% defense, and it's going to auto cast 5% HP recovery and 7% MP recovery per turn. So this isn't a regen, it's like a skill that he's going to cast to heal himself. So this will stack with a regen if you get some sort of HP MP regen on the character as well. His super TMR is an accessory, 60 flat defense, 60 flat spirit, and 3 limit burst gauge crystals per turn. To be honest, I don't like either of these. There's way better super TMR accessories, or even TMR accessories. Genbu ring. I like Genbu ring on a tank better than I do that super TMR. The TMR is attack and defense. If it was HP and defense, then we'd be throwing up hands for it. But it's attack and defense, and he doesn't really actually have much use for attack as a character. I don't know why it's attack and defense. I would have made it like HP and defense, so not sure there. A weapon selection: swords, great swords, axes, maces, hammers. I always want to say maces and hammers, and fist weapons. He's got light and heavy shields, heavy armor, and heavy helms. Just helms. Okay, going in, he's got the typical provoke, 100% provoke for 4 turns, 40% damage mitigation. He's got the AoE physical cover that unlocks a skill for him to use, which we'll go over. He does have, this is where you're going to see a lot of redundancy, and the one thing I don't like about Alphonse is, even though he is really strong, he's got a lot of redundancy in some of the skills he does. So, and the redundancy comes in these Stardust Ray skills he has. They all pretty much do kind of the same thing. He's a Stardust Ray chaining tank, and that's pretty much what he's going to be doing. Stardust Ray, Stardust Ray, Stardust Ray, Stardust Ray. So, as we go down through the skills he learns, the multipliers are going to increase to the point where the final skill is the highest mod. So I'm going to actually skip down to the final skill. This is going to be the highest multiplier because I don't really want to talk about all the multipliers. They have really weird numbers. I'm going to give you how hard these are going to hit. There's no multiplier increases in his kit really for the most part, except for this cooldown skill here. And this is the hardest hitting one that he's got right here. So it's going to be a 1.6 times multiplier defense scaling to 1 enemy on the first 9 hits, and then a 10.4 multiplier with defense scaling to 1 enemy on that final hit. The other ones are weaker than that, 0.7, 6.3, 0.8, 5.2, or none at all, because they're gone, or 4.5 for this very first one. Now the secondary effects, we're going to go into this first secondary effect, 3 to 4 limit burst gauge crystals for the caster, 25% physical damage mitigation for 4 turns to the caster, and then it's going to train Stardust Ray with the lowest multiplier out of all the Stardust Ray skills he has. The next skill he has is an attack and defense buff 150%. I don't know why he gets attack buffs. It doesn't make any sense. It's like Gladiolus all over again, but he's not a bad character. He's actually really good. Defense and Spirit Break resist increased to 100% for 4 turns to the caster. Heals 12,000 HP over 4 turns, so that's 3,000 a turn as well. Probably won't use this skill that much, but it is there. His next Stardust Ray skill, second weakest multiplier, 60% attack and defense break for 4 turns to one enemy. It's kind of whatever. Probably won't use this one that much. The next skill is also a Stardust Ray skill. It's going to give him 30% physical damage mitigation for 4 turns to the caster. See that redundancy right there? And then it's going to give him a 3,000 HP barrier. So this is a skill that you're probably going to actually use quite a bit when you're chaining Stardust Ray with him. Give you that physical damage mitigation, get that Stardust Ray out. Second highest multiplier in Stardust Ray he has. And it should be getting a buff from his skill here. I do believe it's going to get an 8 times multiplier buff, which is going to be very, very strong there. So you're going to be able to get in there on the 8 times multiplier buff, and it's going to give him a 3,000 HP barrier. So you keep your physical mitigation up, do that damage a little bit, get the HP barrier using this skill. Now the last one here is going to be his hardest hitting skill, and if you don't need that damage mitigation, this one's going to be the 1.6 mod and then the 10.4 mod, and it's going to give you a 4,000 HP barrier. So if you really want that, you're going to be going in there back and forth between the top 2 Stardust Ray skills to keep the mitigation up, keep the HP barriers up. You're going to have 4,000 HP on one, 25%, 30% mitigation. As you can see, the redundancy, right? The weaker ones, 25% mitigation, no barrier. Then it's 30% mitigation, 3,000 barrier, and it's like 4,000 HP barrier with no mitigation. So you can kind of see my redundancy issue with him as well. But this skill right here, the 5-turn cooldown available in turn 1, attack and defense buff 230% for the caster for 4 turns. Heals 20,000 HP over 4 turns to the caster, that's 5,000 a turn. It's going to give an 8 mod increase to 2 of his skills, a 6 times mod increase to the other 2 skills, and then it's going to enable a W cast for 2 turns to the caster. So the W cast is very powerful due to the fact that you're going to be able to wear a shield. You're going to be able to wear a shield. Now the second skill right here is going to be the 10.4 and the 1.6 is only going to get a 6 times mod increase, whereas the other one's going to get an 8.0. They're going to average out very similar. That redundancy coming up once again. The final skill here is going to be a 6-turn cooldown available on turn 1. It's going to give you that AoE cover for physical damage, as well as a 45% all damage mitigation for 4 turns to your whole party, and it's going to give you dual cast as well. So turn 1, you can just come in. That's what you're going to be doing, using that cooldown. Get the damage mitigation for your party. It's going to be like kind of like using CG Charlotte's Limit Burst, except it's going to be for physical damage. But instead of it being a Limit Burst, it's just going to be your cooldown skill. Then after that, you're free to go ahead and do whatever you want. Start a Stardust Ray chaining. You know, maybe Stardust Ray chain with someone else who can chain Stardust Ray, then put a finisher in your party. That's how you're going to be using Alphonse Elric. Now moving into his passives here, 30% attack. It makes no sense. This character does not need attack. If you've been paying attention, which I'm sure you have, my very attractive, very attentive audience, made up of 1.3% women, it's going to be... He's got defense scaling and everything. Why does this character need attack? For his what? He's going to... What, if I auto attack with him? Like, it's so dumb. Whoever... Listen, I'm not going on a rant. It's stupid, though. Stop putting attack percents on tanks that don't even use attack. He's going to auto cast a skill at the start of battle. We'll go over that. Attack and HP plus 20%. Then he gets 20% defense when equipped with some sort of shield. 30% attack when equipped with some sort of shield. Once again, why? Attack, defense, and spirit plus 20%. He's going to be immune to sleep and petrify because he's a, soul in a suit of armor. Obviously can't be put to sleep or be petrified. Doesn't exist. 30% HP, 30% MP, 50% draw attacks, very strong. 30% defense, 30% spirit, 30% fire, ice, lightning, and earth resistance. And then his trust ability here, 50% attack. Again, 50% defense. And he gets a 200% attack buff when his HP goes below 81%, 1 time per life, as well as a 200% defense buff if his HP goes below 81%, 1 time per life there. Increases fire, ice, lightning, and earth resist by another 20%. So he's going to have 50% resist to 4 elements, which is insane. 60% defense, 40% spirit, 40% HP, chance to counter physical and magical attacks with a skill. This is the kind of passive he needs. 60% defense, spirit, and HP passives. Yes, we don't need attack passives on this character. 20% MP, 30% HP, 30% MP, 30% spirit, and a 100% chance to ignore fatal damage when your HP is above 5%, and it has a proc rate of 100% and a max use of 1 time. Now his counter here mitigates damage taken by 40% for 1 turn, as well as the W cast here. And then we have activated by, what is this skill? Hold on, hold up, Wiki. Scroll up one time. Oh, it enables his cooldown, his non-cooldown cover enables a stronger version of the cover that gives him a 3000 HP barrier. That's all. Nothing insane there. Nothing insane. His limit burst here. This is the skill. So this is the skill. So if you like this skill, you like to have the cover up. You got to cover up. It's fine. 22 limit burst crystals. Very cheap. Extremely cheap. 200% defense buff for your whole party. 200% spirit buff for your whole party. 50% damage mitigation buff for your whole party, and a 4000 HP barrier for your whole party for 4 turns. This is going to be very easy to keep up. He's going to be your main defense and spirit buffer later in the game. If you have someone temporary to buff those stats up, right? Maybe Sylvie or so. Some character that's got a really strong buff right away, like Ornn. You know, a lot of characters exist that have like a very strong cooldown skill that buffs, and then that's it. They're not a buffer, but they have a really strong cooldown skill that buffs, at least for your defense and spirit. Alphonse is going to take over for you. He's going to have your mitigation, you have your HP barrier, he's going to have your defense and spirit, and then he's going to be able to Stardust Ray chain for you, and he's going to be able to go in there and tank those hits for you with his cover. So I like him quite a lot. He's going to come out the gate. He can be your main mitigation character, period, because his cooldown skill right here is going to give you 45%, and then you keep your cover up with that as well. You get dual cast, and you have your limit burst to keep that mitigation back up, the defense and spirit buff of 200%, and get that nice 4000 HP barrier. So very strong character. A lot of people I think are going to be using Alphonse as a physical tank. If you've been looking for a physical tank, you're a full Metal Alchemist fan, this guy is going to be the one for you there. Now we have Edward Elric here. Physical attacker. He's a physical down attacker, as you can see. Physical down, so he likes to wrestle. His TMR is the clothing, 28 attack, 42 defense, 32 spirit, absolute garbage. But if you put it on him, it's going to give him 20% fire, water, wind, and earth resist. Only on him. Once again, I hate these TMRs that get better when they're on a specific character. Because when I look at that piece of clothing, that TMR, I think it's absolutely trash. Even if it's on him, it's not that good. But it's absolutely trash. 28 attack. This is 2019. It's almost 2020. That's terrible in this game. His Super TMR gives you 50% attack, 50% defense, and 60% fire, water, earth, and wind resistance. Now, this is a good Super TMR. These ones are always going to have a spot when you're looking for elemental resistance for different characters. It gives you not only 50% attack, so that's going to be pretty decent. Nothing like broken. It's not 80% attack, but it gives you 50% attack. Gives you that respective resistance, and this can give you that 50% defense buff as well. Now moving into his skills and his abilities and his weapon selection. Fist weapons, obviously. The man's got a metal arm. I mean, obviously he can use fist weapons. Spears, you know, magical alchemy spears, he's used it. Swords, yep. Daggers, makes sense. All those things make sense for him. He can wear hats, clothing, light armor, and robes. Spot on. Very good weapon selection. I like it a lot. He's got a high tide buff for his first skill. It's kind of whatever. He is a Stardust Ray chainer. And he's going to be your atypical, I use skills. I'm going to get modifier increases. You need to go back to school, you know, pick up your, you know, forget about getting a bachelor's. You need a master's or a doctorate or something to follow my rotation. Getting stacking modifier, because he's gonna be one of those characters, right? He's gonna be like Axstar Reborn. He's like Axstar Reborn with a metal arm and a red jacket and a pocket watch and a sad face and my house burned to the ground. That's this character. He's got fire imbue, water imbue, wind imbue. So he's fire, water, wind, and guess what? One more, earth. Earth damage, fire damage, water damage, and wind damage. And he's got this whole thing. He's got the 4 different imbues that all give multiplier increases 5.0. He's got, excuse me, fire resistance buffs, water resistance buffs, wind resistance buffs, and earth resistance buffs to your whole party as well. These do not get multiplier increases, only the imbues do. He's going to have W cast right out of the gate, and he's got Stardust Ray skill, a non-elemental version, which has a slightly higher multiplier than the other ones. Then he's got a fire, water, wind, and earth version. These all have a 100% imperil associated with them, with a slightly lower multiplier than the non-elemental version at the base. Moving into his cooldown skill real quick, we have a 6 times multiplier available on turn 1. Cures attack, defense, magic, and spirit break from the caster. A 250% attack buff to the caster. I've been talking a lot. Increased the ability to go ahead and triple cast for 5 turns as well. His final skill is a 2-turn cooldown available on turn 1. Physical damage 1.0 mod with ignore 50% defense to one enemy in the first 9 hits. Followed by a 9.0 mod, ignore 50% defense to one enemy on that final tacked on last chain finish hit. It's going to give you a 4.25 multiplier increase to a couple of his other skills and a 3.25 multiplier increase to one of his other skills for 99,999 turns to start a straight chain frame skill. Now, this skill that he gives the 3.25 multiplier to is going to be none other than, you've guessed it, the same skill, because it comes back over and over. Plus, it's a 9,999. So you get these permanent buffs, which is pretty cool. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. And the real skills that he's going after here and buffing up are all of his elemental-based options, as you can see. So he gets a bunch of elemental-based buffs to these skills. He's a very flexible chainer. Pretty boring, though. We kind of know how these characters work. Just multipliers out the butt. Very Xeno of the beta style. Very Axstar style. Not the most friendly for some players to use, but you know, a lot of players do enjoy using those characters. And if you want Alphonse, Edward, excuse me, Shorty, then that's what you're gonna have to deal with. But going into his passives, attack and defense 30%, paralyze resist 100%, HP and MP 30%, 7% MP recovery, enables dual wield, 30% defense with a fist weapon, 30% attack with a sword, confusion resistance, which is not like his character at all. That man is confused in that show all the time, all day, at least during the funny parts. 30% attack, 30% defense, fire, water, wind, and earth resist 30%. Wow, no, he's got 100% high tide, 6 times multiplier cap when true dual wielding, 50% demon slayer, 30% HP, 50% true dual wield, 3 limit burst gauge crystals per turn. His trust ability is 50% attack, 50% more true dual wield, 100% demon slayer. He really does not like demons. And if you wondered why I freaked out when I read demon, I was like, why does this man have demon killer? And then I figured it out. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to say the word dog, and then you'll probably figure out what I'm talking about. Although that's not really a demon, I guess it's more for chimeras. But we're going to continue on. Sorry, you got those sad thoughts. 20% MP, 40% attack and spirit, 20% attack when equipped with the clothing, and then some more multiplier increases there for our boy Edward. And then he's got some triple cast, and then his limit burst here, 46 times multiplier to all enemies, decreased defense and spirit 75% for 3 turns to all enemies. So let's go up here and do one quick investigative thing. As you can see, this fire skill gives you a specific buff for 2 skills, right? So this fire skill gives you a buff for, you've guessed it. You have guessed it, the non-imbuing fire skill. Okay, as well as, what else? Just the non-imbuing fire skill? Oh, no, itself. So each of these elemental skills, you can't use the fire one, the water one, the wind one, and the earth one and have it buff all of your skills. The fire skill is going to buff the fire skill. The water skill is going to buff the water skill. The wind skill is going to buff the wind skill. The earth skill is going to buff the earth skill. All right, that's how that's going to work. So you're going to get that as a buff, and then you're going to have these down here as well. So at the end of the day, I mean, he's pretty cool. He's pretty strong. I'd like to see it in English to be a little bit easier to follow. Obviously, then we have the cooldown skills that give the buffs as well to the other skills. This one buffs up all of these elemental skills down here. 4.25 multiplier increase right there. We have this down here, 3.25, 4.25 multiplier increase as well. And they are broken up in very, very, very strong ways. So even if you give something as innocuous as like this last Earth Elemental skill here with the 100% Earth Imperil, if you buff this up by like a 10 times mod, which is going to happen super easy, that 10 times mod is going to go into here, and then this is going to get doubled times 2. So a 10 times mod increase is actually a 40 times multiplier increase, which is crazy. So a 10 times mod increase, 40 times multiplier increase. This 7 is already a 14. It's going to be a 54 times mod, 55 times mod. So even with a 10 times mod increase in total from his whole kit, he's going to be popping out 50-something times multiplier. So he's going to be very strong. And he's not going to be really that hard to use. It's not going to be like crazy, like what's all my rotations? You pick an element, earth, fire, wind, water. And then you just go in there, make sure your cooldown skill's up, do your cooldown skill. Maybe do your limit burst if you want the defense and spirit break. Probably won't really matter to you. And then just go in there and start doing damage. So he's very easy to use, actually. I thought he was going to be super hard, but I was totally wrong. I was totally wrong. I looked at his kit briefly and then figured it out while we were sitting here. He's not that hard to use, period. You just go in there and you start smacking full. So multiplier increases out the gate. That's going to be Edward Elric. I'll probably go ahead and edit out that video. In fact, I will edit that out. No, it's a funny joke. I'm not going to edit it out. I'm going to leave it like, guys, now, I'm not going to treat this as a review for the global version. You shouldn't treat it that way either. But for the Japan version, if you're out there playing Japan, you're wondering how good they are, my channel really isn't targeted for the Japanese version of FFBE, but I do cover JP stuff sometimes on time, and it looks pretty powerful, looks pretty good. So, FMA fans out there, you're looking pretty good. You're looking pretty good. If you want to see more stuff like this, you want to see the DQ banner reviews as well as other stuff, trial guides, other content for Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, or just Final Fantasy in general, this is where you're going to want to be. So make sure you hit that follow button, notification bell, turn it on so, you know, ring a ding ding. You can get those notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, guys.